we do evolve rapidly. Like owning a business is so important to recognize how much we shift and change because we're always invited to rise based on challenges and hard conversations and unique things that pop up with clients, and so we're not who we were, a few months ago.
Welcome to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinal, and this is a space where bold moves meet inspired action. Join us as we dive into stories, strategies, and mindset of those who are building their dreams, creating impactful communities, and redefining success on their terms. Whether you're looking for practical business tips, a boost of inspiration, or a community that gets your vision, you are in the right place. Get ready to elevate your journey and embrace what it means to be a bold founder. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinal, and I am so excited for today's episode. This podcast is where we dive into impactful insights and stories to help ambitious entrepreneurs thrive in life and in business. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Selina Gray. Selina is a financial empowerment mentor with a wealth of experience. As a CPA, she spent nearly a decade managing large finance teams across 12 countries. And after an unexpected autoimmune diagnosis in her early career was a life-changing wake-up call, and in 2011, Selina founded her own company. Now she's an international speaker and business mentor, helping thousands of entrepreneurs transform their relationship with money, earn more, keep more, and create lives filled with joy and peace. She's also the host of Trailblazer Live, an incredible 2-day conference for women in business happening on this October 28th to 29th, 2025. And tickets are already available. So I'm really excited because Selina, you are just such a powerhouse, and I love everything I've learned from you over the years. But I feel like there's always so much more to learn, and I just adore your heart and your soul and the love you put into everything you do and everyone that touches you. So I cannot wait to have you be our first speaker.
Well, thank you so much. That's really honors me, and I adore you beyond words. You have impacted my life in so many ways. And thanks to you, events have become part and parcel with the core part of my business. And I love that we do them together. So thank you for being a dear friend, a brilliant human being, and a beautiful teammate.
Anytime. I love being helping you with these events, and I love how every event has been a little bit different, but a little bit like it's infused all your brand and who you are, and can't wait for more to come.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay, so I have some questions because I always have questions, but I feel like you have so much knowledge to share, so we're gonna dive right into this. So
Perfect.
I love how you've created your business so that it reflects like your life's desires. So you love travel like me, your creativity, you love your time off. How did you design your business so that you can actually have all these things in your life? And how do you help other entrepreneurs create similar things for themselves?
I love this question. My core philosophy is always to make the most of this one precious life. And so when I started being a business owner back in 2011, I was really excited to grow and to scale and to help everyone. And I realized that as an empath, as someone who's very A type and who always desired to help, that was, really it could be a sinkhole for energy and a sinkhole for like calling in misaligned people. And my first reaction is always to roll up my sleeves and help. And over time, I realized because I have an autoimmune disease that I really needed to prioritize, thinking about how to make the most of this one precious life aligned with my core superpowers and the core values of my life. So it literally began with a simple exercise. If you're listening to this, I invite you to do it simply just to say, like, what are the things that I could add or detract from my life to make it better? And I just brainstormed that. And I loved traveling the world in my corporate life. And I was like, why can't I do that with my business? And I love empowering people who are ready to take action inside their business. Let me take off and do that. And so I really credit this philosophy that I really believe in called evolution and just really innovating ideas and being willing to see the mastery in the failures and continuing to be non-negotiable about building a business that I first love to be a part of, and just deciding that it doesn't have to be perfect. I think I'm I've always been a recovering perfectionist as a business owner, and I think ultimately when I'm looking at things, I'm like, how can I make this better? How can I be more excited to attend? How can my platinum best aligned clients really desire to walk with me in this opportunity? And so core values, non-negotiable, and things that really bring up resentment. I'm like, ooh, there's some nervous system things popping up. I need to make some adjustments. And I don't necessarily have to make the changes immediately, but certainly note them and pay attention to my body, pay attention to what exhilarates me and who it's calling in, and then just adjust accordingly. So I think for anyone, it's entirely possible. We tend to look outside of ourselves for inspiration, and that core philosophy of like, no, I'm going to make the most of this and I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to have as much fun as possible. I want it to be fun, free, and easy. And if I make mistakes, I'm going to figure it out. I can trust myself. And commitment to building a better identity, meaning like, I just if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? So I might as well be the best version of myself and relentlessly pursue excellence alongside fun and prioritize them both. Does that make sense?
That does. I like how you threw, there was so many things that you had mentioned in that whole statement. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I loved that. I loved looking at the parts where you get resentful in your business. It's so easy for us to just say that's our business and that it just is what it is,
Right.
versus looking at it and how can I change this to make it something that I don't feel resentful about.
I've got an example I'd love to bring forward. It just
Mhm.
kind of popped into my awareness when you were speaking. I think it's like more tangible so people can grasp and invite anyone listening to think about what that is in your business. I really loved that some of my teacher friends had the summer off. And I was just like, oh, I wish I could have that. And then I remember this thought popping into my awareness being like, why can't you? And so I started really deciding that I was going to steward this inside my business. Lots of my peers or people, in a similar industry didn't really do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this could really impact clients saying yes, I'm worried. And so then I just decided, why is this important to me? And how can I align that to the importance of my client? Because typically we have similar values and similar likes and desires. And so I really got to the heart of what taking summers off meant for me, which was a beautiful season of rest and recalibration, to be creative, to enjoy the summer season, which is a bit, rare in Canada, especially in the snowy day. And I just thought, like, I only have so many summers with my daughter, who's now 9, but I implemented this when she was a baby. And it was like something I never regret. And I just was unapologetic about why I desired it and why it would be good for my clients, because I really did believe it was good for me and them and us as a whole. And then now, like, I have an email that goes out in mid-June that says, hi, beautiful human. I'm upon an expansive season of rest. I invite you to do something similar. If you're looking for support from us in a 911 capacity, reach out to my team here. Otherwise, like, I hope you find time to take deep breaths, to expand into nature, and to make the most of a beautiful summer season. Like, I'll check my emails infrequently, but I wish you all of the best until then. And some people respond and they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you around?" And some people respond and they're like, "I want to do that. I'm going to do that." And that was the thing that I'm someone who commits to doing things first and making it accessible for others, which is the essence of Trailblazer. So, like, if there's been something it's been on your heart for a while, do it. And now, like, everyone knows we don't do summers around here, and it's a great philosophy, and it gives me something to look forward to. And I know you and I talk about all the time, like, summers are short and magnificent, and we get to create a life first business on our terms. And I just really believe in executing that.
I think this is such a good example because coming from the event industry, my whole busy season was summers, and I
Right.
really was upset that I'd missed so much time with my kids, so much weekends, so much time at the lake. Like, I just felt like I was always missing out. And I know when we started working together, I'd never thought that you could like take a summer off. Like, it didn't come into my head at all. But after seeing like you in action and then seeing how you can design that into your own business, it was kind of cool. And it really works nicely because most entrepreneurs are like, they don't want to work either. They get that
No.
choice to like create that flexibility. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. And it's
Yeah,
been
and
amazing because you can choose what you want to do or not do and when. So why not enjoy that time?
and not even pondering it is saying no to yourself. Like really
Mhm.
being open to what other people are emulating. And instead of the automatic reaction, and not projecting this on anyone who's listening, but sometimes we can look at others and be like, oh, well, that must be nice, for them. And in reality, it's like, well, how can I make that possible for me? And I think that's a really important shift in just abundant thinking. It's like, oh, that feels fun. Why? How can I make that something exciting for me? And I've just kind of gamified that over the last, 13, 14 years of saying, like, I want to push the limits on what I think is possible. And I think you have a lot more fun that way because it just removes ceilings. And so if there's been something on your heart that you've been wanting to change, like, go and do it. You're going to learn a lot. It may not work out like you think. Well, it will never work out like you think. And hopefully it'll be even better. And I just think in doing that, we leave room for miracles in between and we expand our souls and we allow other people to do the same beside us. And I feel like that's always a win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it. Okay, I want to switch a little bit into how you help entrepreneurs and their businesses focus on profits, pricing, and potential. And I like this conversation because, as many entrepreneurs, myself included, we definitely undervalue ourselves. And so, how do you see entrepreneurs and help guide entrepreneurs when they're dealing with this, like undervaluing and their worth?
Oh, this is such a beautiful question. Man, you got some great questions today. Um, so the key for me always is coming back to um, stabilizing our nervous system and honoring what we're doing from a place of power instead of fear or scarcity. Whenever we're deciding to price something based on money or needing to fill up a container for optics externally, it always attracts the wrong person. Like it never fails. Like over the years, I've worked with thousands of people and just witnessed it firsthand, either with clients or in my business. And I think ultimately, like, number one, as a business owner, we have to align to our superpowers, like the things that make us different, that come naturally to us, that feel innate, but people desire help with. Like for you, like I do not understand how your brain works with events. It's just like next level. Like I've done events for years. When you started helping me, it just like took it to the next level. And I think like that's a great example for everyone listening. Like there's a few key things that you just do differently. And I think number one, really owning the identity of saying like this is a gift that I have and it's on my heart for a reason. And if I dim my light, it doesn't do anyone good. It attracts the wrong client. It dims the opportunity for everyone involved. And so coming back home to self-worth, it's like I'm going to base my business around values. I understand that not everyone's going to say yes, but if I establish financial security first and foremost, meaning like I know what I need to make in order to have some breathing room and not feel panicked in my relationship to money, what happens is we open up the opportunity to feel regulated, to feel calm. Like everyone can touch when we feel emotional deregulation, and for me it feels like maybe sweaty palms. I've got that anxious pit in my gut, like I feel nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like I've got that lump in my throat and I feel sweaty. For each of us it's a little different. I'd love for you to think about what it looks like for you to feel dysregulated. But when we're like that, we're either in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and we can't access the part of our brain who's actually creative and logical and helps us get to decisions we want to make. So there's a foundation here of like owning our worth, owning our superpowers, and getting financial safety. And what that looks like is deciding to know what you need to earn to take out of your business each month and making sure you can do that. And that might mean like taking on some projects that you don't love initially, but once you do, it's like giving you the expansive freedom to dream and to step into like, no, I'm gonna charge this because I don't want to call in the wrong client, or I don't want to feel like I have to get 20 clients when I actually need four. And I think, I'm unsure if you'd be willing to share your story. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I watched you in COVID really the business you had was decimated not because of your fault. You were a leading expert. You've won so many awards. You're renowned in the event space. And then all of a sudden, no one could meet in person, and we were innovating what that could look like. And then you pivoted, like the queen that you are, into social media because it was a superpower of yours. You were very talented at reels and social media, and just like that innovation around the space most people don't have. And you needed to just get comfortable first, which was charging a price that you felt okay with. And in that, you start seeing that part of you that's like, okay, I feel confident. This is fun, which is that no brainer pricing. But over some time, you're like, okay, this is no longer fun pricing. This feels, misaligned. And I'd love for you to speak on that if you're open to it, because I don't want to, overshare in your story. It's your story, but I just watched you handle that with such grace. And I feel like so many of the listeners would benefit from it.
Well, I think when I first started doing social media management, I just like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't have the full confidence in pitching myself. And
Right.
so I dipped my toe in, but dipped my toe in like so low, so underpriced, so undervalued, which is why this was a good question for me to ask because I am that person who does undervalue. And then once you've got like your that confidence locked in, it was kind of amazing because you're like, okay, no, we're not charging this anymore, which was still it was not like a easy decision. It was a
Right.
terrifying decision. But once you do, it's like you're like, okay, this is what I'm charging, and I'm not willing to discount it or lower my value anymore. And I feel confident in that. And if you want to work with me, but aren't seeing that value, then maybe we're not meant to be together, and that's okay.
And that's perfect. That's evolution. And I think like you just speaking to that is so effective for people because, what I was saying, like you identified the social media was also a superpower in addition to events. It was something you enjoyed and it was new. So, that whole idea of like getting into regulation and stepping into confidence means we have to price at a place where we feel confident saying, yes, you can walk with me in this, or else it deregulates our nervous system. And so you did that, you found evidence, you got confident, and then you're like, okay, I feel like I've broken through a ceiling that's become my floor, and now I can stabilize into something else. And so that's why I think it's such a beautiful component of the question you asked, which is we have to like own and the identity before it locks in. And my philosophy around that is borrow the belief until it becomes your own. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I did it. I can do the next thing. And it just becomes like this beautiful momentum. So pricing is a tricky one and it's unique to everyone. There's lots of different buyer profiles. We could literally do an entire podcast just on pricing. But I think for everyone listening, just like if you're rubbing up against a part of you who feels like maybe fearful or resentful for what you're pricing, really the first step is superpower aligning to confident pricing and very clear on who you're serving, and then asking yourself after you've had like three clients who said yes, like, okay, do I need to evolve this? Do I need to make changes? Because we can get stuck in patterns too long. And I think what I love to do is speak possibility into people and just say like, okay, we have our pricing for now dialed, get confident. And not that we always have to be increasing our pricing, but we want to make sure we're always harmonizing with what feels good as a CEO, right? And so we do evolve rapidly. Like owning a business is so important to recognize how much we shift and change because we're always invited to rise based on challenges and hard conversations and unique things that pop up with clients, and so we're not who we were, a few months ago. And so breathing possibility looks like we give ourselves permission to make changes that are in our highest and best and in the highest and best of the clients we want to walk with. Because in 2020 I realized that I thought I had just a bunch of clients that were 100% all like ideal clients, platinum level clients. And then the pandemic showed up and I was like, oh, I have lots to learn here, and I made some changes. So, new information, our highest and best, we make changes. So, I think like that pricing into possibility is asking yourself regular questions. And if you feel that dysregulation, to say, oh, I need to get to security financially so I can become creative and dream. Does that resonate?
That does. And I love how when you and I have worked together, when we talk pricing, I'll be like, I have no idea what to price. Because, like I said, I always undervalue and I think about what I would be willing to spend. And I'm always like, I don't know, always nervous about it. And I like how you throw numbers out and you're like, they're not throwing numbers out, they're well thought out numbers, but they push my boundaries. They'll be
Yes.
like, oh, okay. And then you're like, well, let's break this down. If you sold this many, this is what you would end up making. Does this feel like something that is achievable, but also worthy of you and your time? And I think you just reframe it entirely different. And I love how you do that because it pushes me out of my comfort zone, and allows me to also see what is possible and what I'm worth
Yes.
versus me doing it.
And just so for context, people listening, one of the things I invite Jen to see is like that is a pattern that you've outgrown. Like when you welcome in a new offer, all of us feel the same because we haven't walked in it yet. So there's what I refer to as the wobble. And so when Jen is like, I always underprice initially, that's a pattern she's like walking away from. And so the invitation is like, I used to do that, and now like I really analyze differently. So one thing recently we were chatting about, her and I just love to not just pick a price and go with it. And if you do that, that's fine. But I like to really get to the nuts and bolts of why we're choosing that price. And I think lots of people look to peers or competitors and price. And I feel like that is an invitation for dysregulation again, because it has an undercurrent of competition. And I just like to know market value. That's good to know, but I don't like to have it take me out. Like someone said recently, well, what do your competitors charge? I'm like, I have no idea, because after this long, I know I get results and I price based on who I want to walk with. But that doesn't come initially. You have to figure that out. And so something I like to ask myself is, 4 or 5 different price levels and see how it lands within my heart and my soul. And like Jen said, put quantity to them. Like, okay, well, maybe you can sell more at a lower price point or maybe not. And what is like if I sold 4 of them or 10 of them, what do those numbers look like? Because sometimes we're like, yeah, that seems like a great price. And then we actually run the scenario of like how many payments it is and how many people will come in. And you're like, actually, that's not enough money. I wouldn't do it for this much. Or it's like, wow, that's super exciting. I would love to do it. So, it has to be rooted in curiosity and confidence. And then you have to play around with the edge of confidence, meaning like, you don't want to just price everything super low because it's easy. You want to price something intentionally, and I like to say like a no-brainer pricing is great, but when you get more information, the invitation is to say like, does this really call in my ideal client? Because I've had so many people say, well, that feels too low to me. I would never buy that. Or that feels too high. I would never buy that. And you have to ponder it. So, there's lots of reasons for it. And I think don't get caught up in the details. Just really, the whole point of this is to start trusting yourself around, I feel confident here, I'm rolling with this, and I ran some scenarios and I know what I'm getting into. Because too many of us just decide and execute it and are like, dang, if I had more detail, I would have chose differently. And so what you said, Jen, is like you and I in the trenches together, just trying to mitigate potential issues going forward. And I think through that process it becomes really clear what confidence feels like. And like you have mastered this over the last several years. Like I've watched you go from stepping into social media to have a full roster of platinum clients who love working with you, and you absolutely dominate charging your worth. And so I just want to highlight that for anyone listening, when she's, talking about maybe new offers, she's feeling like her first inkling is to underpriced, but that is not your standard anymore. You have a full roster of people who love you because you were willing to jump in and go after ideal clients. After learning the pricing was too low, you pitched people who were dream clients confidently, and they said yes because you're super talented, right?
Well, and this makes me think of, we were just recently talking about the business of events mastermind that I have, and we are talking pricing, and usually some of the numbers that were put down, I would be like, I don't know, I'm like, this is terrifying. But it's amazing how my perspective shifted a little bit, because I'm like, okay, this is what this information is worth, and I am teaching you how to create your own amazing events so you won't
Yes.
need me anymore, right? And so thinking in that terms really shifted my pricing in terms of like always having that value. What is my worth? Am I giving enough? That's always been a thing for me too. And so it's been amazing to see actually like how my mindset around pricing has even shifted, and my value and worth and undercharging, all of that now.
That's really beautiful to note because, for most of us, we're just like in the trenches of our business. And then these ahas are everything because when you think about what you're doing for someone, in an analogy form, because I love a good analogy to just like anchor in a thought, it is simply like instead of giving someone a fish, you're teaching them how to do it over and over and over again. And all of you gets to show up in that environment with your decades worth of experience and your thousands of events that you've put on, and you have a rolodex of like problem solving and solution forward thinking and ideas that no one has access to. And so when they get to spend time with you for a year inside a mastermind, the access they get and the learning curve they get is decades worth of knowledge and award winning information. And I'm so grateful to hear you say that because you're right. Like, people can absolutely stumble along and figure out events on their own, or they can go to an expert who's absolutely dominated the field and then who also happens to be one of the most heart led entrepreneurial focused women on the planet, and then all of a sudden it synergizes into something beautiful. And if you're open to it, I'd love to kind of talk about what that was like for me to just solidify. um in 2019 I really wanted to do a 3-day event, and I knew Jen was really skilled in the space. I had done lots of events before. I knew my core philosophy around gifting and helping people feel seen and heard and witnessed, and just like owning events differently was important to me, and I was doing okay at it. But then when Jen really taught me how to take it to the next level, like the whole thing exploded, in the very best way. It made everything I did better. And that's why like I will shout for the rooftops for a lifetime about working with you, because to this day I don't do an event without you. Like there was one event that you were in Mexico for and I was like, can you still help me? And you did, and you just have this way of seeing things. And I always knew events were important to my business, and I knew that it would help me, in a variety of ways. But you just took certain things to the next level so that the results could be so much better. And so as you were building this mastermind, I've been so elated because I've had a front row seat to this for the last 5 years, and I know firsthand what it can do for people. And I think like you stepping into your power around your gifts, you stepping into your power around aligned pricing, and creating containers like this is actually a monster win for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, people tend to think about this stuff, it's like, events, whatever. But it really is a unique strategy that allows you to maybe not have to show up as much on social media, or to shorten the need to warm up clients because you're in this special room. And like when I watched you this past fall, you know, do the bold experience, like no one does it like you. And so, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Ooh, I'd love to have events be part of, growing my business." Jen knows what she's doing, and she's helped me exponentially grow um, through my events. And so it's an absolute no-brainer. And I think even for yourself, like Jen has been able to take the event background she has, which had nothing to do with entrepreneurship besides the fact that she was an entrepreneur, and then take that and put it into potent different learnings for this industry where we crave in-person events now because we spent so much time on our computers. And so it's never been a better time. And I'm just so proud of you. And I'm just such a happy client of yours in that way, because you always know what's happening. And my first reaction sometimes in a event disaster is to panic. And you're always like so calm. You've seen it all before. And like that's really why it's so worth it, because yeah, I could flounder on my own, or I could just talk to you and you will help me through. Like, it's not that you have to give me the answer, but you just recalibrate me and we find the answer together. Don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been doing it for so long that I've seen every possible thing go wrong. But then
Yes.
also, I can see it before it happens, right? Like when we're talking about the event, let's talk about the flow. Where is things going to go? Who's our contacts? Do we have all that information organized so if something does go wrong, we can call up and be like, you're supposed to be here, right? Like, I don't know. It's so much. If you are in a disaster at an event, being panicked about it is not going to solve the
Well,
problem.
well, then it takes you out. Like, I think that's one
Hmm.
other really good thing is you sheltered me from a lot of it because I'm up there presenting and you've already like solved things that I don't even know existed, and that is worth its weight in gold because events you're showcasing items for people in attendance, and so there's lots of things go into it, but you've dialed it down into an easy tangible thing that can happen. And like, people might say, well, can't you just do it on your own now? Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. The truth was, like, in 2021, I started to try to do it on my own because I knew you're going to be in Mexico. And I was like, no, like, I can't access the information that Jen has. And so, like, yeah, I think why I'm sharing all of this is we all have these zones of excellence. Like, when I think about Jen in events, she has such a competitive advantage, but it's like breathing air for her. And the rest of us have no idea. And I think all of us, when I say superpowers, we all know things like breathing air. Like, I know exactly what you mean when you say, like, I can see what's coming. Because that's how my superpower is in seeing, cash flow opportunities and profits for women business owners all the time. And so, yeah, I just think like now is the time to really build around those superpowers. And I love that you've built this mastermind because nothing like this exists, and it's a really good opportunity to you know really amplify profits in your business if you do it right, especially with your knowledge. That's what that's like a 100% truth, having walked it alongside you now for what, like 5-6 years.
Okay, so we love events. One, I think it's just there's so much fun to be at and the community that comes with it. But I love how events can make you jump from like, I know this person based on social media to like, I know and love this person. And it really helps develop your community so much faster. And so I want to know about your community and how it's such a big part of your business. And how did you foster a space for women entrepreneurs where they can connect and support and see, like, meet each other in your event experiences and with working with you?
Okay, like, I just have to give you kudos. Like, I get asked questions all the time. I'm really excited you've relaunched this podcast. These are really beautiful questions. Like, I did not get these questions beforehand because that's not my style, but like, damn, they're good. Um, for me, it was born out of not belonging in community. So when I first, started designing being an entrepreneur, I realized like I didn't feel safe in circles of women very often, if ever. And I tend to gravitate towards like men relationships. This was up, till 2011. And I realized through like some support and mentorship and just like based on the nervous system work that I was learning back then, that I had to do the hard thing, which was to decide to create community in the thing I was most scared of. And I had to figure out how I was going to do that in a way when anyone walked through the door that they were honored, because I've walked through so many doors and I never felt honored. I felt invisible, and I felt like competitive energy and just awkwardness, and I was like, I never want that to happen. And of course I can never stop it from happening, but I'm going to do my absolute best to mitigate that whenever possible. And so I just really got intentional about a core philosophy that's never left me, which is seen, heard, and witnessed. So when someone walks in to my community, I want them to feel seen. And I have lots to say, as you could well hear, but it's important to me that my people feel like my people, that they are seen and also heard. And the third being witnessed, meaning like not just the fluffy shit, like the stuff that really matters, like the part of us who maybe wants to hide our shadow or feels vulnerable. Like, I'm always willing to share the stuff no one else is sharing, like the stuff that's embarrassing or dark and twisty, because we're all humans in a human experience doing our best and we can learn from each other. And I think I have a superpower of really welcoming and safety that's been developed over the last 13 years. I've spent a lot of time learning about it because as a traditional chartered accountant, that wasn't necessarily that came naturally to me. But I realized that when I fostered an environment like this, it really called in women that I'd hoped for, that I'd want to had conversations with and felt safe with in the past. And I've just been relentless about that ever since. And the compliment I get the most, I would say, is that I have the best people in my community. I call in like top-notch human beings. And I really believe it's because it has been my number one North Star this entire time. Like, I will never do anything at the expense of a person in my community. I will never not. Like, I get feedback all the time and I listen to it. And it's not that I necessarily agree with it because we all have our opinions and it is my business. But when you are around me, I want you to know you matter. And
Mhm.
that doesn't exist. It's getting better, I would say. Like we're doing a great job of making that better. But I think like even Trailblazer, the last round of Trailblazer we did, I just really feel like that's one of the reasons it was such a core success. My superpower of building community, and they're all in the room and they're just like, wow, I've never been in a room like this. And that is
Mhm.
like the greatest compliment. So to me, it's really intentional about building, witnessing, hearing, and then evolving the community. Like there are things I will not tolerate. I won't tolerate mediocrity. I won't tolerate bullying, all those standard things, but I do it in a really eloquent way to say, like, let's have our best self show up to this and let's have the hard conversations. And I know it works. So I'm never gonna stop.
Well, I think community, I didn't know it really existed. Like I was before in the event industry, I would go to all these networking events and trainings that I would learn from speakers, but I always felt like I had to armor up, like steel myself up and be prepared to walk in to not a fun experience and not really, I didn't really enjoy it. I really wanted to learn. And so I didn't know that we could have an incredible community until I stepped into yours. And that's when I was like, wow, this feels so much more different, so much more welcoming. The women in your community are like right there with you, ready to cheer you on, encourage you, help you, support you. It's so powerful and I just want to give you like kudos to you because I didn't, like I said, I didn't know this existed and I bet you a lot of women don't know that communities like this exist and that they're just waiting for you to come and join them and like spread your wings.
That means so much to me. It like really does because it's the most important thing. Like I will go to bat for my people and my people will go to bat for me. And I think one of the reasons why is because I believe in a philosophy called connection is currency. And what I mean by that is like genuine connection, like truly caring about people is good for all. And having good standards and boundaries while we do it. Like we're not doing it at the expense of ourselves. We're doing it to breathe possibility into each other. And we're going to hold each other accountable on things that we're maybe hiding from. And that is critical, like having those layers of accountability. But what I love is over time, like everyone in the community was supporting each other, but also growing businesses alongside each other. Like they're like, wow, you're amazing. I would really love to hire you. And I think that done in integrity, not just being like everyone needs to hire each other, because that's like gross, but just being like, wow, you amaze me. You have something that I would love. And I think some communities are set in being like, no, we're not doing that. You know, only the leader can benefit. And I've just watched like pockets of my community support each other and move mountains and move like profit mountains together because it's just like this welcoming place to say like I see you, I witness you, I hear you. And also like I would love to find clients for you or I would love to hire you myself because we're all at the same baseline, meaning like we're there with integrity, we see the best in each other, and we're willing to have hard conversations when they're not. Because we can talk about fluff communities all day, but I believe in realness. Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but I am always committed to having those hard conversations. And so I hold the bar for everyone really high. There's no room for hiding. And if you need to hide, it's okay. It might be that you need to do some healing, But I just think that as the leader of this community, I need to be um, proud to be the leader of this community. I need to be in integrity of what I believe, borrowing the belief, deep connection is currency, genuinely caring, continuing to evolve my standards and my boundaries, and modeling that for everyone so that I'm walking my true talk, that I'm really walking the trail systems, and the days like where things are hard, I share it. And I think it's just created this magnetic opportunity where we're like, all right, there's no time for BS. We're just here for the real stuff. And in that, it's born something I don't think I've witnessed anywhere else. And it's probably the thing I'm most proud of in my career.
I think what I really like is that when you stand for all of this, but when you go to your event like Trailblazer Live, it's like infused in everything that you do. The community aspect, the you standing on stage and doing it first and being very honest and raw, and the people that you bring up on stage and the conversations you have with the women in the room. You give everybody a voice. Like there's mics on either side of the room. So if you have a question, please go there and do it. And the time is spent with yourself, but everybody else in the community listening and then supporting. And so I think that what you've created with Trailblazer Live and your previous events is really, really powerful and impactful. And I'd love for you to unpack about like why did you decide to create this type of an event and what can people expect when they come to the one in October?
Oh, amazing. So I feel like because I've spoken on hundreds of stages in my career, that there was just something icky about how people view speakers. And I don't mean that in a, disheartening way or as a generalization. I just mean that people, because a stage is usually elevated, people tend to put people on stages on pedestals. And I've just like I'm one of my superpowers is just like watching and witnessing and then like looking at what works, what doesn't, and bringing that home to my community. And so I was speaking on a lot of stages and people would come up to me almost like timidly and they're like, I'm so sorry to bother you. I would love to like pick your brain on this. And I was just like, why have we created a society where like we're not just seeing people sharing as like other people and putting them on pedestals? So one of the things I do almost first thing on stage is like I burn the pedestal down. I'm like, anyone who's coming up here is an awesome human. So are you by being here. You felt the call. All of us felt the call to be here. We're all experts in our own right. And what I think it does is just it allows everyone to exhale a little bit. And some good, great feedback I got on the event last year was like one of the women who's been to lots of events, she gave me lots of praise. But one of the things that stuck with me the most was she's like, so many of the speakers like stayed for the entire event and played full out in it. Like they're engaging and they were excited and they stayed the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, I want to build something that everyone wants to stay for without hierarchy. And don't get me wrong, like the women on stage deserve so much credit because they've done miraculous things, but we want to breathe possibility, not from hierarchy, but just from ultimate truth. And I think like that's one of my competitive advantages is just I see what's possible for people and then I create environments for people to thrive. And we don't always figure out like I love a good strategy. That's how we can optimize our profit really well. But before the strategy comes like really listening to voices of in the trenches alongside you and saying like, ooh, wow, that I never thought of that, or oh my goodness, I didn't even realize I was rubbing up against that, or by someone asking a question, you feel seen, heard, and witnessed in ways you never would on your own. And so, like, there's elements of strategy in business that are absolutely essential. But I think it's so much bigger than that. And I think that we don't always understand the potency of community. Like I said recently, I was just at a retreat, leading a retreat in the US, and I was saying, like, people can follow you for 2 years on social media and that's wonderful, engage them, etc., but they could come to your event and you do it like with your whole heart and it's exquisitely planned and you are really intentional, and those 2 days could be more impactful than those 2 years. And I think that's what I live for is just those experiences that people say like, my life changed. I've never been to something like this. This is the best thing that I ever could have done. I'm leaving with real friends. Like, I get people engaging at tables. Like, you're leaving with friends. If you didn't come with any, no problem. If you came with some, great. You're leaving with more. And it's just something that is deeply important to me. And I've never honestly been able to talk about it in this way. So I'm so grateful for these questions. But you know this about me, you know how I am, and then you help me foster an event so that it can even be better. Because at the end of the day, we're all brilliant in something. We all get in our own way. But if we do it together, we realize we can do anything, even when we forget, and we just borrow that belief and keep going. And I've watched it for over a decade. It's a miraculous thing. And so when I was really thinking about the next evolution for me, which was trailblazer, I was like, I'm the one who goes first. And I looked up the definition of trailblazer, and it's like the one who's willing to go into wild country. And I was like, that's me. And when I look at my community, it's just trailblazer after trailblazer after trailblazer, and we hang out together, and then we move the mountains together, and we know we're going to lose the toenails because the bad days are coming. But there's
Yeah.
so much easier when you have other people being like, yeah, I know I lost mine last week, or I hear you, I just got hit in the face with the branch on the trail. Or you're like, yeah, but don't forget, like, the waterfall is up ahead and it has the best views on earth. And it's just way better than doing it on your own. And so trailblazer to me is an identity. It's something that is infused at an event and just stays with you for a lifetime. And I best be the best trailblazer I know how to be if I'm leading the thing. And I'm not leading it from a pedestal. I'm leading it by walking alongside the best people I know. And what better thing on earth can you do than that?
I love that you brought up that somebody had mentioned that, because if you didn't, I was going to, that it was really powerful to have all the speakers not only be there for the whole day, but they sat at the tables with everybody else. They were super involved. They it's not that they were on a pedestal, because I know what you mean when you look at a speaker and you're like, oh, they're doing it, and you're just in awe of them. But when you actually get to sit and talk to them and hear their stories and be part of the conversation with them, they become so much more real and like not on a pedestal, but they're your inspiration, but they're also your friends that you've now developed and your connections
Yes.
that you can continue on with. And I think that is so powerful.
And I love like hearing from a variety of successful people. So like we had 8-figure business owners, we had people with over 500,000 followers doing epic things, and we had people just starting and also doing epic things. And I think that that's not showcased well in our industry as well. Like, I'm willing to be challenged on that, but that's something I look to and saying, like, we always take like the top 1%, which is great because that is phenomenal. Like, those success stories deserve to be featured. But what about the people in the trenches, who are like, oh my gosh, this is life changing. Like, I want to hear those stories too. I want to hear from the trailblazers of all levels. And you need to curate that in a correct, right way, because otherwise, it could be too boring for some or not engaging for enough. So there's definitely a dance to it. But I really love that this community is filled with really successful people, and also people just getting started, but they're all embodying the essence of trailblazer. And I believe in another philosophy that I talk about a lot, which is beginner's mind. And I think we can learn, there's something to learn from everyone. And yes, when push comes to shove, it is nice to be in groups of peers who are at a similar place than you. But especially at events, when you're like hearing the person who's like, okay, I'm going to take the leap and do this for the first time, it can bring you back to the potency of rebirthing and starting again and bringing that new energy back. Or hearing from someone who's like, I remember what it was like to start, but now I've got a multi 7-figure. Like, both of those things can coexist in the same space and honor the room. So that's also another thing that's important to me. I can talk about this all day. I'm sorry, I'm just like ranting away here.
No, it was so powerful. And I think the one thing that really sets Trailblazer apart too is all the different touch points you have throughout the 2 days. Like, you have things that you do that are, am I allowed to share some of the inside details?
Yes, yes, of
Okay.
course.
You have like, first of all, as soon as you walk in, you just get this amazing feeling of like community and welcome. You're the people that are working like with you to put on this event. they're already there, like smiling, heart centered. You can just feel the warmth as soon as you get there. But there's so many beautiful touch points throughout the entire event, like the notebooks you have, the fire, the money tunnel, the stories you share from stage. I just think that it's not just like one big wow speaker or one big wow moment. It is multiple touch points throughout the entire event that really get people to see their own trailblazing, acknowledge it, celebrate it, but also look at what they want to go to and then look at the women around them and realize that they're not alone because we do this. Entrepreneurship is typically solo. And so you're in your, for me, I'm in my office all the time working. And so it's just so powerful to be in rooms and have so many points that you feel welcomed and appreciated and included throughout your conference. I think it's really, really powerful.
Well, and I agree, but also like that's one of the ways you really help me because I'm like, this is really important to me. How can we make it better? And you always have lots of ideas on that. Like I remember one of the first things that we did together, like back in 2019. I had been sharing quotes for a long time on my Instagram, like my words that were meaningful to people. And you're like, we need to make this a part of the event. And I plan to make it a part of the event, but not in the way that you shared it. And it was so impactful. And now it's become like a kind of a staple. And I love how we like reinvigorate the energy of that each time. But people like come to expect it. It's like, oh, like I've heard many times people saying, like, I sat at the spot where the words called me, and it really, those words, I needed those words were for me. Or like people will tag me on social media and they're putting their like my words on their Christmas tree or they're hanging it in their office. And I think like, I absolutely wanted my words and my quotes and part of all of those core philosophies to be a part of the event, but you just found a way to like make it like the genification of an event where it has a bit more impact. And so like that's one way where like I love gifting, same as you. Like you're, I don't know, you're like the next level gift giver. You're so good at it. But I love it too. And I think like we always have fun talking about those things. And then it's really received well. Like I kind of feel like our podcast is just like one of our like strategy meetings where we talk about things because this is really what it was like. It was like, okay, well, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? How has it helped the person walk in the room? Because I said to you, I remember that very first thing. I'm like, I want people who walk in the room to already feel like they have a friend, someone smiling at them, feeling like they're welcome. That's like part of the philosophy. And then, we just found a way to make it better together. And so I just really want to thank you so much. Like you might be listening to this and being like, "Oh my gosh, they hire each other." Yeah, like that's connection is currency in action, right? Like I feel like your superpower has made my company and my heart better. And my hope is that I've done the same for you. And the thing is hiring each other is part of the work. Like you don't have to do it, but for us it just makes sense. And I think not always just thinking that you can't ask good questions. Like I really wanted to formalize this because I'm like, I want to pick your brain, and yeah, I just really appreciate our friendship, our ability to come and make each other's worlds better, and just your outlook on life is second to none. And yeah, I love our conversations like this.
I agree. I feel like we can probably talk for hours and hours and hours on multiple topics.
Yes.
Um, but I really do appreciate you coming on today to talk like about community events and business and pricing and all the things because there it's just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we could talk about for business, but you have had such a huge impact, and so it was really important to me that you were kind of like my kickoff person for this podcast, because you have had such an impact in my business and my growth and my pivots and just seeing what is possible. So I really want people that are listening to understand what is possible for them and to know that there are seriously incredible people out there to work with and to partner with and to bring into your community. And you just have to be open to it and willing to put yourself out there and have fun with it because business can be so hard and
Yes.
and lonely.
And that's what happened to us. Like we both started alone and then we are doing the best we could and then we found each other. And I think just like being surrounded by people, you always innately make things better for the people around you. And now like watching you post COVID, like you still take on events that you desire to, but on your terms, which is perfect. You've given yourself the summer. You are like the best mom. You are always involved in everything that you desire to be. You and I share that. We're like not missing any children things because that's a core desire. And like
Mm.
you've built so many facets to your business around your superpowers, and you have built an exceptional community. And just watching you birth that unapologetically on around your values and your superpowers, like the women, like I watched you recently do a on your stories, like the women got to be together in the Bold Founders, and they're all just like I can just see the change happening in real time. And so I'm just extremely proud of you for taking bold action and being in integrity with being bold. And I know this podcast is just going to be such a huge resource for people. And I'm just so proud of you and I love you so much. And I'm so honored to be on here and sharing my experience with you and sharing our wisdom together. Thank you so much.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, any last words of advice or messages you want to leave with our audience?
Yeah, like I would listen to this podcast and pick out like one or two core things where you're like, ooh, there's a ping there. Like I desire that, or, ooh, I have some superpowers that I'm not doing, justice. And come back to where you want to live your one precious life. Like you're building a business, you're scaling a business, you are a trailblazer. Take on that identity, borrow the belief until it becomes your own, and binge watch this podcast with this incredible woman because things will really change. Like if you commit to doing one to two things per episode and implementing it and immersing yourself in this community, you will see change and you don't have to feel alone. Like you can burn down lone wolf or that it has to be hard. It is hard, but it doesn't have to be hard alone. And I think just remember that we all believe in you. Like you may not know who I am, but I believe in women in business like nobody else. W- Women building wealth is good for all. It amplifies who you are. And so relentlessly pursue it and be unapologetic about going first and trailblazing. And you're going to make mistakes and you're just going to implement new lessons. And we believe in you, don't we, Jen? We believe.
Oh, 100%. Anything is possible if you just have the desire to go after it and the courage and the brave and the, yeah.
And the last thing I would do is invite you to come to Trailblazer. Like we had people come from around the world last year. And October 28th and 29th, 2025, Jen is going to be there right beside me doing the things. And I think you'll just really love to be a part of the magic. And so I'm just so grateful for this time with you, Jen.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It was absolutely amazing, as always. And where can people find you?
So I spend the most time on Instagram. It's my first name dot last name, Selina.Gray. Come hang out with me there. If you've listened to this and something resonated with your heart, send me a DM. I love to have conversations. You can also check out what's going on my website, selinagray.com. We're doing an overhaul of that right now. So yeah, I think for everyone to just not be a stranger. Like if someone makes change for you, start the conversation because it always leads somewhere beautiful. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, so let's talk key takeaways from today's episode. She's such a powerhouse, and I was so excited to have her on because I have learned so much from her in my business, in my growth, in where I want to go, and what is even possible. And so we really just talked like the tip of the iceberg. I feel like there's so much more we could go into with talking to Selina about business. But my key takeaways are one, I really want to talk about the fact that it is okay to undercharge and undervalue yourself when you are just starting something and you're building your confidence. Like I've done this. I mean, in a way, you may look back at it and be like, oh, that was so terrible. Like, why did I do that? But like for me, I had to charge lower just so that I could understand like what my package was looking like, the number of hours I was spending on it, what I should be charging, and what should be included in my packages so that when I did pitch at the rate that I wanted, I understood that. Like I understood what went through everything to create that sort of pricing. And I also went and I worked with people that specialized in social media agencies and got to learn from them about it. So I don't want you to think that you have to always charge your worth. I mean, yes, you do in the long run because you will become resentful and you will not enjoy your life and you will not have the things you want to do because you're not charging enough for the hours you're putting in, and you'll spend way too many hours doing your job and not living life, which is why we want to be entrepreneurs. So know that it's okay, but also know that it's a stepping stone to get you to where you are, because you are going to create something so incredible and so powerful, and I cannot wait for you to just like step in and rock it. And yeah, we just have to learn on the way there, and I know that was my story and that's what I had to do. And I wouldn't change anything because it was really like really impactful for where I am now, and believing in myself. And so just know that it's okay to undercharge in the beginning when you're figuring it out. And then once you figured it out, then unapologetically go and charge what you're worth because you deserve it. Okay, key takeaway number 2, community. I have been saying this forever. I didn't know that community like this was a possibility until I joined one of Selina's groups and then was welcomed into this incredible community of women entrepreneurs. And which is why community has become so important to my business and my life and who I surround myself with, because you can grow so much faster when you surround yourself with women who are lifting you up, who are empowering you, who are allowing you to see what is possible for yourself and possible for your future, for your family, for how you can design your business. There's just so much that comes out of community, and it just gets you there so much faster. And I cannot talk enough about how impactful it is in terms of like getting to what you want quicker, and also not doing it alone, because community just makes everything so much more fun, makes it so we're not working in our offices all by ourselves for hours. We have people who are like they're excited for us and cheering us on, and they've been in the trenches with us, they understand our questions. And so community is a huge part. And then key takeaway number 3 is the event world. I mean, I love events. I think they're so powerful, and you could show up on social media over and over and over again. And like Selena said, for 2 years, they could follow you for 2 years. And in 2 days, you could have way more impact in their lives, their businesses, their mindset, their family, whatever it is you're speaking on, and get them to fall in love with who you are, your brand, what you talk about, your community, your mission, your values. It's so much faster because you are welcoming them into, it's like welcoming them into your home, where you want to have touch points where you're like, oh, come on in, can I get you a cup of coffee, come sit on the couch here, do you want a blanket? It's kind of the same thing when you are welcoming in someone to your event, where you get to say, here, please come in, and here's what I want you to feel. Here's the experience I want you to have. I have a cup of coffee for you with your name on it. I have personalized seating. I know what your favorite drink is. I know the types of people you want to surround yourself with. Like it is, you've put the effort in, you've put the time, you put the thought and the welcoming aspect into your event, but also your business. So it's kind of the same thing. And I just think that we can get to know somebody so much faster when we can see their excitement, their passion, and it's not curated like it is on social media. Like, yeah, I can go and talk on stories all I want, but I also have the option of pausing it and saying, I didn't like that, and deleting it, right? So when you're in person in live events, people are going to stumble, and that's what makes it real. People are going to share real stories that they wouldn't share on social media. They're going to be honest with you. They're going to be welcoming. They're going to have little touch points that really sprinkle in who they are and the hearts that they like, the heart that they put into everything they do. And so those are my key takeaways. I really also recommend that you go follow Selena, because I don't know, she's got this magnetic energy. I don't even know when I originally found her on social media, but I just knew that I had to work with her. And I'm so thankful for her, for what she's taught me. I'm so thankful for the community she's brought me into. I'm so thankful for her personally. She is just such a heart of gold and truly cares about everyone she works with, connects with, talks with, speaks on stage with. Um, she just is, she's just powerful. And so it was really, really important to me that she was one of the first to come speak with you guys, because I owe a lot to her. And I think that she is going to impact so many lives for the better. And so I can't wait for her to inspire you the way she's inspired me. Have a wonderful day, guys. And thank you so much for joining me today. And we have so many more incredible episodes and speakers and guests to come. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Bold Entrepreneur podcast. I hope you're walking away with inspiration, fresh insights, and a few takeaways to fuel your journey. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other bold founders and entrepreneurs in your circle. And when you're ready to elevate your business, check out the Bold Founders Collective. From community support to strategic resources and personalized coaching, we're here to help you thrive. Remember, the bold moves you make today will shape the future you're dreaming of. So stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive into deeper stories of strategies and mindset shifts that all make the difference. Until next time, stay bold, keep dreaming, and keep moving towards what lights you up.